Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This time, we're diving into the world of Australian Registered Training Organizations.
RTOs.
RTOs, right? You guys sent over some sections from the User's Guide to Standards for RTOs 2015.
A pretty dense document.
It is dense, but it's like the Bible for quality training in Australia.
It really is.
So we're going to try to break down how this system works.
And what it means for you as a student.
Exactly.
Oh.
Okay, so the guide really stresses how important high-quality VET is.
VET, meaning vocational education and training.
Right, VET. It's important not just for students,
But also for the whole community.
and even the training providers themselves, right?
Really.
It even highlights how much Australian VET contributes to the economy
Both domestically.
and internationally.
Yeah, through the export education market.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the guide emphasizes that a strong regulatory framework is super important for the long-term success of VET in Australia.
It's all about making sure that Australian qualifications are recognized and respected globally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And speaking of the framework, the guide mentions that the standards for RTOs are part of a bigger system
They are?
called the VET Quality Framework,
Right.
which basically means that it's like the rule book for making sure nationally recognized training in Australia is top-notch,
The rule book,
and the one making sure everyone is playing by those rules.
is ASQA.
ASQA, right?
Yeah.
The Australian Skills Quality Authority.
That's the one.
Okay, so this is where I think it starts to get really interesting.
Yeah, it does.
So the guide walks us through the 5 key phases of a student's journey.
Almost like a roadmap.
Yeah. It starts with marketing and recruitment,
Then it goes through enrollment,
then support and progression,
the actual training and assessment.
and finally reaching the destination, completion.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start.
Sounds good.
Marketing and recruitment,
That first step.
the very first step, and the guide is really big on transparency here.
Transparency is key.
It is. So RTOs have to give accurate and accessible information to help prospective students make informed decisions.
They do.
In fact, ACOA did a review back in 2013,
Oh, wow.
and they found that almost half of RTOs were potentially misleading consumers.
Oh, that's not good.
Not good.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a reminder,
A big one.
a big reminder, that you, as a student,
You need to be careful.
you need to be careful. You need to be
You
savvy.
need to do your research.
Do your research, absolutely. So don't be swayed by those flashy marketing materials.
Nope.
Dig a little deeper, make sure the information you're getting aligns with what you actually want and what your expectations are.
Read all the fine print.
Read all the fine print, exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's say you've navigated the marketing maze.
Made it through.
You're ready to enroll.
Exciting times.
It is exciting. What should you be looking out for at this point?
Well, the guide emphasizes that RTOs need to be really upfront about all the important details.
Like what all?
All the nitty-gritty details of the course, all the costs involved, your rights as a student, and importantly, how your fees are protected.
Yeah, because you don't want to pay all this money, and then the RTO goes bust and you're left with nothing.
Exactly. And there's actually a specific mention about protecting prepaid fees.
Really?
Yeah, exceeding $1,500.
Interesting. $1,500.
That's a magic number.
That is the magic number. Now, why is there such a focus on protecting those larger prepayments?
It's all about minimizing the risk for students.
Right.
Think about it. If you prepay, a big amount of money for a course,
Mm-hmm.
and then something happens to the RTO,
You're out all that money.
you could be left high and dry, no money and no qualification.
Oof, that's not good.
Not good at all. This part of the guide is like insurance for students,
Right.
making sure that their investment is protected.
It's like a safety net,
It is.
especially for those who are making a big financial commitment to their education.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've enrolled, you're feeling good, you're ready to go.
You're in.
But then what? What about support?
That's where the support and progression phase comes in.
The important progression.
Okay.
The guide's clear. RTOs have a responsibility to go beyond just delivering the curriculum.
So it's not just about showing up to class
No,
and listening to a lecture.
it's more than that.
It's more than that.
They need to provide support services that cater to each student's needs.
Okay.
Things like language, literacy, and numeracy support, or even access to assistive technology if needed.
So like recognizing that students come from all walks of life
They do.
with different backgrounds, different learning styles,
Absolutely.
and they might need a little extra help along the way.
A helping hand.
The helping hand, exactly.
Yeah, it's about creating a supportive environment where everyone can thrive.
I love that, making sure everyone can succeed.
Mm.
All right, so you're feeling supported,
Yeah.
you're making progress,
Yeah.
and then you hit the big one. training and assessment, the heart of the VE experience.
Of it, yeah. What does the guide say about this?
Well, standard 1 of the guide is all about making sure that the training and assessment is top-notch,
Okay.
and it actually meets what the industry needs.
It's got to be relevant.
It has to be. It covers everything from how training and assessment strategies are developed
Okay.
to how they're implemented, making sure the trainers are qualified and competent as well.
So holding both the training and the trainers to a really high standard.
Absolutely. That's exactly it.
Got it.
And the standard emphasizes that RTOs need to consider the individual characteristics of their students and the specific demands of the industry when determining how much training is needed.
So it's not one size fits all.
Definitely not one size fits all.
Okay, makes sense.
It's like tailoring the training to fit both the student and the industry.
Like a well-made suit.
A perfect fit.
Perfect fit. Okay. It's also about making sure students have access to all the resources they need.
Yeah.
Learning materials,
Equipment.
technology,
Support staff.
setting them up for success from day one.
From the very beginning.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about assessments.
Sure.
What are some key things students should know about how they're evaluated?
Well, the guide really emphasizes fairness,
Okay.
validity, reliability,
Okay.
and flexibility in assessment.
Flexibility. Okay.
It's not just about testing knowledge, it's also about evaluating skills,
Got it.
making sure students can apply what they've learned in real situations.
So you can actually walk the walk.
Got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to make sure that the assessments are actually relevant and reflect industry standards, the guide highlights how important it is for RTOs to collaborate with industry experts.
So they're not just stuck in an ivory tower.
Nope, they need to be connected.
They need to be connected to what's happening in the real world.
This could involve consulting with employers, industry associations, professionals, making sure the content is up to date.
Up to date and relevant.
It's like bridging that gap between the classroom and the real world.
Yeah. Bridging that gap.
Exactly. Now, let's look at a real-life example of an RTO that did just that,
Okay.
tailoring their training and assessment to meet specific needs.
Good.
The guide has a case study about hospitable training.
Hospitable training.
An RTO delivering the certificate third in retail operations.
Okay. Retail.
Their main student group was people already working in retail stores.
Okay. So they've got experience.
Experience under their belt.
They know what they're doing.
Exactly. So hospitable training designed their training and assessment with that group in mind.
Okay. I like that.
They used workshops for the theory assessment and did practical assessments right in the students' workplaces.
Oh, that's smart.
Learning by doing in the actual environment,
Yeah.
they'll be applying those skills.
Brilliant.
They also recognized their students didn't need the full 1,200 to 2,400 hours of training usually recommended for a certificate 3/3.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, they already had some experience.
Right. So why start from scratch?
Exactly. They were able to streamline the program without cutting corners on quality.
Okay.
And to personalize things even further, they actually interviewed each student before the program started
Oh, wow.
to understand their background, their skills.
That's great.
And they use that information to tailor the training even more.
Wow.
It's about creating a learning pathway that's unique to each student.
That's really cool. So they're not just throwing everyone into the same pot and hoping for the best.
Exactly. It's much more personalized than that.
I like that.
It's a great example of how RTOs can adapt and be flexible.
Yeah, it's not just about ticking boxes.
Nope.
It's about recognizing that each student brings something different to the table.
Exactly. It shows how competency-based training can be tailored to the individual.
I like that a lot.
Me too. Now let's jump to another case study.
Okay, hit me.
This one really highlights the importance of authentic assessments.
Okay.
The guide talks about ABC mining,
ABC mining.
an RTO delivering the certificate third in emergency response and rescue.
Oh, wow. Emergency response.
To staff working in a large open-cut mine.
High stakes.
High stakes indeed.
Yeah.
They had to think outside the box when it came to assessments.
Because you can't really simulate that in a classroom.
No, not effectively.
Right.
They knew that a simulated classroom environment wouldn't cut it, so they partnered with the mine's emergency response team
Oh, wow.
and designed assessment tasks that were integrated into the mine's actual emergency drills.
Oh, wow. That's learning by doing in, like, the realest sense.
It is.
Yeah.
Students got to apply their knowledge and skills under pressure using the actual equipment and procedures they would use in a real emergency.
So it's beneficial for everyone.
Absolutely. For the students, the trainers, and the mine itself.
Right, they end up with better prepared emergency responders.
Exactly. It's a fantastic example of how RTOs can work with industry to create assessments that are not just theoretical exercises,
Yeah.
but actual simulations of real-world situations.
And the students get a much richer experience. Yeah.
Now, speaking of assessments, the guide also outlines some really important principles that underpin any evaluation.
Okay.
Should we unpack those?
Yeah, let's unpack those. What are the key principles behind fair and effective assessment?
Well, there are 4 key principles.
4 of them.
Okay.
Fairness,
Fairness, that's a big one.
flexibility,
Flexibility, all right.
validity, and
I
reliability.
got it, right.
So fairness means making sure that assessments are accessible to everyone,
Everyone, regardless of.
regardless of their background or any challenges they might face.
So it's about leveling the playing field.
Leveling the playing field, yeah.
Okay.
This could mean providing adjustments for students with disabilities
Right.
or even language support for those who need it.
Okay, so making sure everyone has a fair shot.
Exactly. And flexibility means recognizing that students can show their competency in different ways.
Yeah, because not everyone's good at taking tests.
Exactly. It's not just about multiple choice tests,
Yeah. RTOs are encouraged to use a mix of methods like demonstration,
Oh,
projects, portfolios, even reports from employers.
so it's about capturing the whole picture,
The whole picture, yeah.
not just a snapshot.
Exactly. Now, validity ensures that the assessments are actually measuring what they're supposed to measure.
So no busy work, no irrelevant tasks.
No busy work, no filler.
Got to be relevant.
Has to be directly relevant to the skills and knowledge needed for that specific field.
Okay.
And lastly, reliability means that assessments are consistent.
Consistent. Okay.
You should get similar results no matter who's doing the assessing or when it's happening.
Right. So removing any potential bias.
Exactly, taking the guesswork out.
Taking the guesswork out, yeah.
So it's about having clear criteria, standardized procedures, and well-trained assessors who apply those criteria consistently.
So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. Now, on top of these principles, there's a set of rules of evidence
Rules of evidence. Oh, okay.
that come into play when making assessment decisions. It's like a quality control check to make sure that the evidence presented is actually up to par.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Let's talk about these rules of evidence.
Let's talk about the rules of evidence.
So, all evidence has to tick 4 boxes: validity, sufficiency, authenticity, and currency.
Okay, 4 boxes. Validity,
Flexibility.
authenticity,
Yeah.
and currency.
Okay, break those down for me. All right, so validity we've touched on before,
Okay.
but for evidence, it means it has to be directly related to the competency being assessed.
Okay.
It has to actually show that the student can perform the skills and tasks required.
So no shortcuts?
No shortcuts, no fluff.
It's got to be the real deal.
It has to be.
Yep.
Sufficiency means there needs to be enough evidence to make a confident judgment about the student's competency.
Okay.
Some students might need more opportunities to demonstrate their skills than others,
Right, okay.
but the assessor ultimately needs enough information to decide if the student meets the standard.
So it's quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, exactly.
Got to tell the whole story.
Tell the whole story with the evidence.
Got it.
Now, authenticity, that's a big one these days.
Yeah, especially with all the AI tools available,
Oh, yeah,
people can,
A little help?
get a little help, yeah.
Authenticity is all about making sure the work is the student's own work.
Their own work.
Their own work, and this is especially important for online learning, where it's much easier to, let's just say, borrow someone else's work.
Right, borrow.
Borrow, yeah.
Okay.
RTOs have to verify that authenticity through observation, identity checks, all sorts of methods.
So they're really cracking down on plagiarism.
Absolutely. Maintaining academic integrity is a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's got to be your work.
It's about earning that qualification, honestly.
Honestly, yeah.
Demonstrating your own skills and knowledge.
Okay, so no cheating.
No cheating.
Got it.
Now, last but not least,
Currency.
currency. The evidence needs to show current competency,
Current competency. Okay.
meaning it reflects the student's ability to perform the skills using current industry standards and practices.
So not just something you knew 5 years ago.
No, it's got to be up to date.
Got to be up to date, yeah.
Ready to hit the ground running in today's job market.
Okay, I like that.
So these rules of evidence, combined with the principles we talked about earlier, help make sure that assessment decisions are fair, consistent, and accurate.
That's really important.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of ensuring quality, a huge part of that responsibility rests on the shoulders of the trainers and assessors.
Right, because they're the ones shaping the future professionals.
They are.
So they need to be top-notch themselves.
Absolutely. And the guide's very specific about what qualifications and skills trainers and assessors need to have.
Okay, let's hear it.
Clauses 1.13 to 1.16 of the guide lay out the requirements.
Okay.
Trainers and assessors have to be more than just experts in their subject area.
They got to be good at teaching.
They need to be skilled educators, yeah.
Right.
They need to understand things like adult learning principles, competency-based assessment,
Okay.
and how to create really engaging learning experiences.
The masters of both the craft
And the teaching.
and the teaching, right? I like that.
Exactly. And to make sure they've got the right teaching skills, the guide says they need to have specific training and assessment credentials,
Okay.
like a certificate in training and assessment,
Wow.
or a higher level qualification in adult education.
So it's like you wouldn't want someone who's never taught a class before.
To just walk in and be a teacher.
Should be a teacher.
Right. And even beyond those initial qualifications,
Okay.
the guide stresses that trainers and assessors need to stay up to date
Up to date on all the latest.
with the latest industry practices and trends.
Latest, yeah.
So they need to demonstrate ongoing engagement in their field.
So they're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
They've got to be walking the walk,
Right.
actively practicing what they preach,
Okay.
demonstrating that commitment to continuous learning.
Yeah, setting a good example for their students as well.
Absolutely, because learning is a lifelong journey.
It is.
Now, I'm curious, what happens if an RTO needs to bring in someone who doesn't quite have all those qualifications yet?
Yeah, because sometimes you need a specific skill set.
Right. And you might not find someone with both the skill set and the qualification.
Exactly. Wes,
Well, the guide addresses that. Sometimes an RTO might need someone with very specific industry expertise who hasn't completed those formal teaching qualifications.
Okay.
In those cases, they can actually work under the supervision of a fully qualified trainer,
It was like an apprenticeship.
like an apprenticeship for trainers, yeah.
I like that.
They still need to have the relevant vocational competencies and industry skills.
Right. They can't just walk in off the street.
No, they need to have some basic training skills like presenting or mentoring,
Okay.
but they work under the guidance of that qualified trainer who observes their performance,
Mm-hmm.
provides feedback,
Okay.
and makes sure the quality of the training isn't compromised.
Sort of win-win.
It is. The qualified trainer is ultimately accountable for the training delivered under their supervision.
Okay, so there's accountability there.
There is.
Yeah.
Now, I want to touch on a very specific type of training,
Okay.
training the trainers.
Training the trainers.
This is where people actually learn how to become VET trainers and assessors themselves.
So it's like training the trainers of the trainers.
That's a good way to put
It's
it.
pretty meta.
It is, and it's crucial for maintaining quality across the whole VET sector.
Yeah.
So the guide has specific clauses,
Okay.
clauses 1.22 to 1.24,
Right.
that outline the requirements for delivering qualifications in the training and education training package.
Okay, so that's the pathway.
That's the pathway to becoming a VET trainer or assessor.
Got it.
And it's a higher standard for those who are responsible for training the teachers. Right?
Yeah, because they're the ones shaping the future.
Exactly. They need to hold the same qualification they're teaching or a higher level qualification.
So you wouldn't want someone who hasn't mastered algebra teaching algebra.
Exactly. And to ensure that these qualifications are delivered to the highest possible standard,
Mm-hmm.
Clause 1.25 requires RTOs to actually undergo independent validation of their assessment systems and processes.
Okay, so it's another layer of quality control,
Exactly.
making sure that the trainers of trainers are being trained effectively.
Exactly. It involves having an external expert, someone with no ties to the RTO, come in and review the RTO's assessment practices.
So like getting a second opinion.
A second opinion from a specialist.
From a specialist. Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense. All right, so we've talked about those initial stages,
The early days.
the early days of a student's journey.
Mm.
But what about the end goal? Completion?
The grand finale.
The grand finale, yeah.
Yeah.
What happens when students are ready to get that qualification?
That's where standard 3 of the guide comes in.
Standard 3, okay.
It's all about making sure that RTOs provide secure and timely certification
Okay.
that recognizes what their graduates have achieved.
It's a big moment.
It is.
Yeah, they've put in all this work,
Blood, sweat, and tears.
and receiving that qualification is huge.
Absolutely. And the guide stresses that certification is more than just handing over a piece of paper.
Right.
It's about recognizing the value of the student's hard work
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that certification is accurate,
Okay.
secure,
Right.
and meets all the requirements of the Australian qualifications framework.
So it's legit.
It's the real deal.
It's the real deal.
Yeah,
Hey.
Clause 3.1 makes it very clear. RTOs can only issue qualifications to students who have actually met all the requirements.
They can't just give it to anybody.
No honorary degrees here.
No honorary degrees, okay.
The assessment process has to be rigorous. It has to meet all those standards we've been talking about.
Right.
And to maintain the integrity and credibility of those qualifications, Clause 3.2 says all certificates have to meet specific requirements outlined in the guide.
Okay, so there's rules around the certificate.
There are.
Got it.
They have to be issued using specific templates,
Okay.
incorporate security features to prevent forgery.
So they can't just print one up at home?
Nope, they've got to be official.
Official.
And the information on them needs to be accurate and actually match the training that's been completed.
So it's all about quality control.
Quality control, exactly.
Making sure those qualifications hold their value
Yes,
and are recognized as legitimate proof of skills and knowledge.
that's the key.
Yeah. Okay, so what about the timeline? How long does it take to actually get that certificate?
Well, to avoid any unnecessary delays, Clause 3.3 sets a time frame of 30 calendar days.
30 calendar days, okay.
From the date a student completes their training and assessment for the RTO to actually issue that certificate.
30 days, that seems reasonable.
It does.
Okay.
Assuming all fees have been paid, of course.
Of course, got to pay the piper.
Got to pay the piper, that's right.
Okay, so now you've got your certificate. What then? Do they keep a record of that?
They do, and it's a long one.
Okay, how long?
Clause 3.4 requires RTOs to keep records of student certification for
Wait for it.
30 years.
30 years.
30 years?
Wow.
That's a long time.
That is a long time.
It really shows a commitment to recognizing those achievements over the long haul.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
And the guide also provides some helpful tips for RTOs to maintain the integrity and security of that whole process.
Like what?
Things like implementing controls to prevent certificates being issued prematurely,
Right.
using secure printing methods, and verifying student identities to prevent fraud.
Okay.
It also emphasizes that the certificate should go directly to this student, not to a third party.
Directly to the student.
So the student has control over their own credentials.
Right, so it's about empowering the student.
Empowering the students, yes.
Okay.
Now, another important part of the completion phase is the use of the unique student identifier.
Oh, the USI.
The USI, right?
It's like a digital passport for your VET achievements.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's a unique 10-digit code
Mm-hmm.
assigned to every student undertaking nationally recognized training in Australia.
Okay.
It creates a secure online record of their achievement,
Well, that's cool.
making it easier to keep track of qualifications, share those records with employers,
Right.
and avoid the hassle of requesting duplicate certificates.
Oh, that's great. So it's super helpful for students.
It is.
And it makes sense.
It does.
Okay, so Clause 3.6 of the guide states that RTOs can only issue a qualification or a statement of attainment after a student has either provided a verified USI
Right.
or the RTO has applied for one on their behalf.
Exactly.
So it's mandatory.
It's mandatory in most cases.
in those cases.
Yeah, there are a few exceptions for certain types of training or students.
Okay.
But even then, RTOs still need to report some data on commencements and completions.
So there's always some level of tracking.
Always.
Okay.
It's all about maintaining that level of transparency and accountability.
In those specific circumstances.
Even then,
Got it.
the guide encourages RTOs to actually verify the USI at enrollment, which makes everything smoother and more efficient.
So it's best to get it sorted out early.
Get it sorted early, yeah.
Okay.
And for students, having a USI makes life easier when it comes to accessing and managing their VET records.
It's a win-win.
It is. Promotes transparency, accountability, gives students easy access to their own credentials.
I like it.
So it seems like the guide really covers all the bases. From those very first steps of choosing a course to that proud moment of receiving that certificate.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It is, but it goes even further than that.
Okay.
It emphasizes that the effective operation of RTOs depends on a solid foundation of regulatory compliance and good governance practices.
So it's not just about what happens in the classroom.
No, it's the whole picture.
It's about making sure the machine is well-oiled and running smoothly.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
And the guide dives into a few key areas like, for example, there's the fit and proper person requirements outlined in Clause 7.1.
Fit and proper person requirements, that sounds intense.
It's all about ensuring that the people calling the shots at RTOs are trustworthy and accountable.
Okay.
It applies to anyone in a leadership position.
Right.
The CEO, executive officers, high-level managers, anyone with influence over how the RTO operates.
Okay, so it's about having the right people at the helm.
Exactly.
Got it.
They need to be of good character, have a solid financial track record,
Okay.
and be genuinely committed to upholding the integrity of the VET sector.
So high ethical standards for the leadership.
Absolutely.
Got it.
RTOs have to provide fit and proper person declarations
Declarations.
when they apply for initial registration or when they renew their registration. They also need to notify ASQA if anything changes that might affect someone's suitability for the role.
Like what?
Things like changes to their financial situation or if any legal issues come up. So they have to keep AQA in the loop.
Transparency is key.
Okay, so it's not just a one-time check, it's an ongoing thing.
Exactly. AKWA uses this information along with other data to assess whether an RTO is actually suitable for registration.
Got it. So beyond the individual people in charge, the guide also talks about the importance of an RTO being financially viable,
Yeah, that's critical.
right? Because students are investing time and money.
Their hard-earned money.
Exactly. They need to know that the RTO is financially stable and can actually deliver the training you're promising.
Absolutely. No one wants to sign up for a course only to find out the RTO is going broke.
Right, exactly. So clause 7.2 of the guide,
Outlines the financial viability risk assessment requirements.
which are designed to make sure that RTOs are on solid financial footing.
Exactly.
So what kind of information do they have to provide to show that they're in good financial shape?
Well, ASCOA looks at a bunch of things,
Right.
like their business model, their financial resources, debt levels, cash flow, how much they rely on government funding or student fees. Okay.
RTOs might have to submit things like financial statements,
Okay.
business plans, or even evidence of financial reserves to show that they can meet their financial obligations.
Right, so they can keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on and deliver that quality training.
Okay, so moving beyond the individual fitness and financial viability, the guide emphasizes the responsibility of RTOs to operate ethically and responsibly within the VET sector.
Right. It's not just about ticking boxes.
It's about doing things the right way.
A genuine commitment to ethical conduct.
Exactly. So clauses 2.1 and 8.5 of the guide.
Make it clear that RTOs have to comply with all the relevant legal requirements.
All of them, okay.
All of them. Consumer protection laws, privacy legislation, workplace health and safety, any other legal requirements that apply to how they run their business.
Got it.
And to ensure transparency and accountability,
Mm-hmm.
Clause 8.4 requires them to submit an annual declaration on compliance to ASQA.
Okay, so it's an annual checkup.
Checkup, yeah.
Making sure they're still playing by the rules. Exactly, and in this declaration, the CEO has to confirm that the information about the RTO is accurate, that all those key personnel meet those fit and proper person requirements, and they even have to address any non-compliances or risks that have been identified.
So it's about showing their commitment to maintaining those standards.
Absolutely.
Okay. And Clause 8.6 requires RTOs to keep their staff and students informed about any changes to the laws that might affect the services they provide.
So everyone's in the loop.
Everyone's in the loop, yeah.
Transparency is key.
Okay, now sometimes RTOs might engage external providers to deliver certain aspects of their training or assessment.
Right, like if they need specialized expertise that they don't have in-house.
Exactly, so it's like outsourcing some of the tasks.
Exactly. These are called third-party arrangements.
Third-party arrangements are...
And clauses 2.3, 2.4, and 8.3 of the guide outline the requirements for managing those relationships.
Okay, so what are the key things they need to keep in mind when working with these third parties?
The main thing is that even when using a third party, the RTO is still ultimately responsible.
Oh, wow, okay.
They're responsible for the quality of the training and assessment provided.
So they can't just pass the buck and say, oh, it's the third party's fault.
Nope, they can't just wash their hands of it.
So the RTO is still in charge.
The RTO's in the driver's seat.
Okay, so what kind of things do they need to do to make sure that everything is up to scratch?
Well, the guide outlines a bunch of requirements.
Like what?
Things like having a formal written agreement that clearly defines the roles and responsibilities of each party.
Okay, so everything's spelled out.
Exactly. They need to make sure that the third party is meeting the same standards as the RTO.
Mm-hmm. So the quality doesn't drop.
Right. They have to monitor their performance and have ways to deal with any issues that come up.
So it's about being proactive in managing those relationships.
Absolutely.
Okay. And to keep things transparent, Clause 8.3 requires RTOs to include details about those third-party arrangements in their annual declaration.
They have to tell ASQA about it.
Okay, so ASQA knows what's going on.
Exactly. They need to be upfront with SQI about who's providing the services, what the terms of the agreement are, and any risks involved.
Okay, so it's all about transparency and accountability.
Transparency and accountability, that's the name of the game.
Got it. Now, before we wrap up this section on regulatory compliance, I think there are a couple more important obligations we should touch on.
There are a few more, yeah.
Lay them on me.
Firstly, Clause 7.4 requires RTOs to have public liability insurance that covers all their operations.
Okay, that makes sense. Accidents happen,
They do.
and it's important for students to be protected.
Absolutely. This insurance provides financial protection if a student or anyone else is injured or their property is damaged because of something that happens during training or assessment.
So it's a safety net for everyone involved.
Exactly.
Okay, and then there's Clause 7.5.
Which outlines the data provision requirement.
Data provision requirements, okay?
This means RTOs have to collect and submit accurate data to ASQA and the National Center for Vocational Education Research.
NCVER?
NCVER, that's right.
For national reporting and all that?
Exactly, for national reporting and statistics.
So it's about contributing to the bigger picture of the VET sector.
Right, and helping to inform policy decisions.
So they're not just operating in a silo.
Nope, it's all connected.
Okay, that makes sense.
The data helps to understand trends in enrollments, completions, what types of training are being delivered, and even feedback on the quality of training.
Okay.
It helps to identify areas for improvement and track the overall health of the VAT sector.
It's like taking the pulse of the system.
Exactly. And lastly, clauses 8.1 and 8.2 highlight that RTOs have to provide any information requested by ASQA
Okay.
and cooperate with any investigations or audits they conduct.
So again, it's about transparency and accountability to the regulator.
Absolutely. It ensures ASQA has the information it needs to do its job effectively, which is to monitor quality, identify any potential risks, and take action to protect students.
And ultimately maintain the integrity of the whole VET sector.
Exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. It's amazing how much detail is packed into this guide.
It's a comprehensive document, that's for sure.
But it's been really helpful to unpack it all, to understand the logic behind these requirements.
It's all about ensuring quality and accountability within the Australian VET sector.
Right, and for students, understanding these requirements is really important.
It is. It empowers them to make informed choices about their education.
Right.
Knowing that the system is designed to support their success.
Yeah, like having a roadmap and a guidebook all rolled into one.
Exactly.
It's been incredible to walk through all this
It has.
and to really understand the thought process behind everything.
Yeah.
But, I'm left wondering about something.
Okay, what's that?
We've talked a lot about the nuts and bolts of how RTOs operate.
The nitty-gritty.
The nitty-gritty, yeah. But what about the bigger picture? How does the guide address the challenges of preparing students for a rapidly changing world of work?
That's a really important question, and the guide does touch on it.
Go ahead.
It highlights the importance of things like industry engagement and staying up to date with the latest trends and technologies.
Right, but the world's changing so fast.
It is.
And the skills that are in demand today might be obsolete tomorrow.
They might be.
So how can the VET sector keep up and make sure its graduates are ready for jobs that might not even exist yet?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And while the guide does provide a good framework, it doesn't necessarily have all the answers for a future full of unknowns.
It's like we have a roadmap, but what happens when the landscape changes completely?
We need to be prepared to go off-roading.
Go off-roading, I like that.
We need to think beyond the current map and start exploring new territories. And I think a big part of that is fostering a deeper connection between education and workplace.
So breaking down those walls between the classroom and the real world.
Exactly. We've talked about industry engagement, but I think we need to take it a step further.
Okay. No.
Imagine RTOs and industry partners actually working together to create the curriculum.
Oh, wow.
Providing students with real-world experience through internships, apprenticeships, even mentoring programs.
So really integrating the learning with the doing.
That's the idea, creating a system that's more dynamic, more responsive to what's happening in the workforce.
That's pretty exciting.
It is, and it's not just about industry collaboration. There's also the need to embrace new technologies and teaching approaches.
Like what?
Things like online learning platforms, micro-credentials, personalized learning pathways.
So tailoring the learning experience to each student.
Exactly, making it more flexible and relevant.
Okay, that makes sense.
And of course, there's the importance of cultivating those essential skills that are transferable across all industries.
Things like critical thinking and problem solving.
communication, collaboration, the skills that allow graduates to adapt to new challenges and learn new things quickly.
So giving students the tools they need to be lifelong learners.
Exactly, capable of navigating whatever the future throws at them.
That's a great point.
So as you embark on your VET journey, keep these broader questions in mind.
Okay.
Don't just focus on the qualification itself. Think about the skills you'll gain, how they align with your career goals, and whether the RTO you choose is actually committed to staying ahead of the curve and preparing you for the future of work.
It's about being proactive, doing your research,
Asking questions.
asking questions, making informed decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Remember, this deep dive has given you a really solid foundation,
It has.
but it's just the beginning of your learning journey.
The beginning.
Keep exploring, stay curious, and don't be afraid to dive deeper into the specifics of your chosen field.
Excellent advice. We've covered so much ground,
We have.
but I'm already eager for more.
All right, what else can I tell you about this fascinating world of Australian RTOs? Well, there's a lot more we could uncover, but I think it might be time to start wrapping up this deep dive.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
But before we do, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Okay, I'm all ears.
We've spent all this time talking about the rules and regulations that govern RTOs and how these standards ensure quality and accountability and ultimately lead to student success. But it's important to remember that the world is constantly changing.
It is.
Industries evolve, new technologies emerge, and skills that are in high demand today might be completely obsolete tomorrow.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
So the question becomes,
How can the VET sector keep up with this rapid change and ensure that graduates are not just job ready, but future ready?
you got it, that's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And while the User's Guide to Standards for RTOs 2015 provides a solid framework for quality training, it doesn't necessarily address the complexities of preparing students for a future that's full of unknowns.
It's like having a really detailed roadmap, but then all of a sudden the landscape changes completely.
Exactly. We need to think beyond that current map and start exploring new territories.
Go off-roading.
Go off-roading, exactly. And I think a big part of that is creating a deeper connection between the world of education and the world of work.
Bridging that gap between the classroom and the real world.
Exactly. We've talked about the importance of industry engagement, but I think we need to take it a step further.
Okay, how so?
What if RTOs and industry partners work together to co-create the curriculum, providing students with those real-world experiences through internships, apprenticeships, or mentoring programs?
So it's not just about learning the theory, but actually applying those skills in a real work environment.
Exactly. That's the key, creating a system that's dynamic and responsive to the evolving needs of the workforce.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not just about industry collaboration. We also need to embrace the potential of emerging technologies.
Things like AI and automation.
Things like online learning platforms, micro-credentials, and personalized learning pathways.
So tailoring the learning experience to each student's needs and interests.
Exactly. Making those programs more flexible, accessible, and relevant to the needs of today's students.
That's a really exciting prospect.
It is. And of course, we can't forget about those essential transferable skills that are valuable across all industries.
Like critical thinking, problem solving, communication, collaboration.
Those are the skills that will help graduates adapt to new challenges, learn new things quickly, and thrive in a world where change is the only constant.
It's about giving students the tools they need to be lifelong learners.
Exactly. Capable of navigating the complexities of the future job market no matter what curveballs it throws their way.
So it's not just about getting that qualification. It's about developing a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation.
Absolutely. So as you embark on your VET journey, keep those broader questions in mind. Don't just focus on the qualification itself.
Okay.
Think about those skills you'll gain, how they align with your career aspirations, and whether the RTO you choose is committed to staying ahead of the curve and preparing you for the future of work.
It's about being proactive, doing your research, asking those tough questions,
Exactly.
and ultimately making informed decisions that align with your long-term goals.
Well said. And remember, this deep dive has given you a solid foundation.
It has.
But it's just the beginning of your learning journey. Keep exploring, stay curious, and don't be afraid to dive deeper into the specifics of your chosen field.
Excellent advice. That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for taking us on this incredible journey through the world of Australian RTOs.
It's been my pleasure.
It's been so eye-opening and empowering for me, and I hope for our listeners as well.
I hope so too. And remember, knowledge is power. Your education is an investment in your future.
Absolutely. So until next time, Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.